On a daily basis, consumers are faced with situations which involve making wise decisions. In making decisions, we must consider the probability of the success of our choices. Hello, this part of the Algebra video project is set to assist you in reinforcing your skills in working with probability. In this video, you'll see students just as yourselves involved in using the concept of probability to make shopping decisions. Now, let's step into probability.
I saw a really great pair of athletic shoes in this magazine. I figure while we're here, why don't we look for a pair?
Well, sure. Let's locate all the shoe stores at this mall that sell athletic shoes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 stores that sell athletic shoes.
Well, I know it's been advertised that this store has 150 stores altogether.
All right, so that's 7 athletic shoe stores out of 150 total stores.
Well, let's count how many shoe stores that don't sell athletic shoes.
Okay. 16. There are 16 stores that sell other kinds of shoes.
So there's a total of 23 stores that sell shoes at this mall.
Out of 150 total stores. All right, well, let's go find my shoes.
Okay.
You've observed students discussing the stores they will visit. You've also seen them make a list of the stores where basketball shoes can be purchased out of the number of stores that sell shoes in total in the mall. Relative to probability, an event is any group of outcomes. The complement of an event is all possible outcomes that are not in the event, such as an electronics store would be the complement of an event in this case, since they know they wouldn't be able to find any tennis shoes in that type of store. The number of stores that sell shoes out of the number of stores in the mall in our situation is what's defined as our probability situation. Probability is the number of favorable outcomes out of the number of possible outcomes.
I want to try the JA basketball shoe and the Knicks basketball shoe. Well, we're definitely not going to find it at Radio Shack.
Well, you know, we could probably find it at the Athlete's Foot.
You're right.
Let's go see.
To consider the certain event, as certain event always happens and has a probability of 1, the students have defined the stores in which they will find the exact shoes they're looking for. Those are the certain events of those students. Now, we also want to talk about an impossible event. An impossible event is the purchasing shoes at a store that only sells like electronic equipment. That would be very unlikely to do. Therefore, an impossible event is an event that never happens and has a probability of 0. As you've observed, the students have found a store in which they can find the exact type of shoes they desire to buy. There are 2 specific kinds they're looking at. But while they consider only 2 types of shoes, the 2 types of shoes come in different styles, different colors. So to develop the total number of choices they have from the 2 different shoes, they can have what's called a tree diagram. A tree diagram is a diagram that shows all the possible outcomes in a probability experiment. In this case, all of the possible combinations of the tennis shoes. Here you see a visual example of all the types of combinations. They're looking for a shoe called JA and Knicks. Both shoes come in high top and low quarter. Both shoes come in several different colors. And if you'll notice, they end up with, from the 2 shoes, 2 brands of shoes they're considering, they end up with some 8 different combinations of those shoes. From the 8 different choices they've developed, they've come up with a field called a sample space. The sample space is the set of all possible outcomes of an event. In this case, we've got 8 different possibilities or 8 different combinations of shoes to choose from.
You know, I think I'll give my old shoes away to charity.
You know, there are so many shoes in this box. I wonder what the probability would be of finding a shoe identical to this one.
Good question.
As we observe the young people pulling the tennis shoes from the box, they're talking about what is the probability of selecting a white low-quarter tennis shoe. If you'll notice, from the 6 tennis shoes they have in the box, they have only 2 white shoes, the rest are black. Therefore, the probability of pulling a low-quarter white tennis shoe from the box is 4 out of 36. What is the probability of selecting matching low-quarter shoes if you select a second shoe, without replacing the first shoe selected? That probability is 2 out of 30, resulting from 2 out of 6 times 1/5. Within this type of situation, we have what's called dependent and independent events. In our situation, our dependent event results when the outcome of one event affects the outcome of the second event, such as putting the shoes back in the box. Then we have what's called independent events, when the outcome of one event does not affect the outcome of the second event, when we simply choose tennis shoes from the box. This complete situation is defined as experimental probability. Experimental probability is the ratio of the number of times an event actually happens to the number of times the experiment is done. The students have done an experiment in choosing shoes using independent and dependent events. In this type of experiment, we have what's called outcomes. Our outcomes are the possible results of a probability experiment. Theoretical probability is if each outcome has an equally likely chance of happening, such as we've got black low-quarter shoes, only 2 in the box, therefore the probability of choosing one of those is 2 out of 6 or 1/3. We have 2 high-top black shoes in the box, therefore the probability of choosing one of those is 2 out of 6 or 1/3. We have only the 2, or we had only the 2 white low-quarter tennis shoes in the box, making the probability of choosing a white shoe 2 out of 6 or 1/3.
Did you know at this mall there are 7 out of 150 stores that sell athletic shoes?
So I guess in general we could say it's about 1 to 20. Let's go home.
This type of conversation leads us to what's called simulation. Simulation is a model of real-life situation. They're wanting to know whether or not the mall they're in gives them a real-life idea of what they could possibly expect of a mall in Washington, D.C., in Los Angeles, California, or anywhere in this nation. I do hope that we've provided some activities and incentive for you to consider using and thinking about probability in your everyday life. Now let's summarize what we've done. We've talked about events, complements of an event. We've even defined the word probability itself. We've talked about certain events happening that happen with a probability of 1. We've talked about impossible events happening that have no probability or probability of 0. We've developed a tree diagram. We've talked about sample space, the combinations of all of the types of outcomes that an event can have. We've talked about dependent and independent events. We've seen students involved in experimental probability, developing outcomes. We've seen them involved in theoretical probability and discussing what's called simulation. Now it is truly my hope that you have as much fun stepping into probability with the supplemental activities your teacher will now provide for you as the students did in this video. Good luck, and please remember that in all steps of life, probability is involved.